Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Spencer Spraggins, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome you all to this poetry event on behalf of the Poetry Society of Virginia and Germanna Community College. We are so grateful to both of those entities for hosting this, and we are thrilled that you all have taken time out of your busy schedules to devote some hours to poetic endeavors. We're going to start with a workshop presented by Luisa Igloria. We are quite lucky to have Mrs. Igloria with us this evening. She's originally from Baguio, Philippines, and she's the award-winning author of Maps for Migrants and Ghosts. The Buddha Wonders If She Is Having a Midlife Crisis, and 12 other books. Mrs. Igloria was the inaugural recipient of the UK's 2015 Resurgence Poetry Prize, the world's first major award for eco-poetry. She is a Louis I. Jaffe Professor of English and Creative Writing in the MFA program at Old Dominion University. In July 2020, she was appointed Poet Laureate of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We are delighted to welcome Mrs. Igloria. Please join me in giving a silent round of applause to our wonderful workshop leader, and I will turn it over to her. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. You can just call me Luisa, so I don't think about my mother-in-law, right? I hope all of you are doing well. Thank you for joining us. I think I see a few names that probably sent me some poems for one of my Poet Laureate projects. I'm doing a crowdsourcing poetry project, and I'm doing that for the entire month of October. So if you have time, take a look on my website. All right, so thank you, David, and thank you, Elizabeth, and everyone who put a lot of effort into this. I'm just sorry that we can't commune in person, but hopefully we'll get there soon. So when David asked me to think of a workshop topic, I was thinking, I'm constantly thinking of everything we've had to go through in the last 18 plus nearly 20 months. And I think thinking about that subject, it's pretty much on everyone's minds all the time. I mean, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. We are still dealing with a lot of challenges on all fronts. So I just wanted to check in quickly with all of you also to make sure that you're doing okay. I thank you for the gift of your time here. And since there's not too many, I think right now, maybe we could go around the Zoom room and you can just quickly tell us who you are and anything you'd like to share. And what it is that maybe you're thinking of when you thought about the title of this workshop, what resonates with you, and we'll just take it from there. So whoever wants to start.
I'll start.
Right. Hi, Karen.
No, Patricia. No? This is Patricia from Michigan.
Okay. No, I was looking at the other square above you. Hi, Patricia. Thank you. Of course, I've seen you online.
Yes.
And I'm very glad that this is like the closest we'll get to a face-to-face, maybe for a while, but happy you're here. Yeah.
And for what I was thinking about when you were talking about the pandemic, I'm someone with long COVID who got it in the first wave. So in 2 weeks, it'll be 20 months that I've been ill.
Oh, even so, even more. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Patricia. Would someone like to share?
I'll jump in if it's okay.
Yeah, anybody, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Laura Younger. I live in Alexandria, Virginia. Fairly recent transplant here and new to the Poetry Society of Virginia, but overjoyed to find them because I found my real home in North Carolina with their Poetry Society. This workshop, I'll tell you, it's funny because with COVID, you think you'd be more present because we're sort of closed in. But with work and other worries and concerns, it's difficult to be present. So I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And would somebody like to go next?
I'm Sue Gabe.
Hi, Sue.
I have not been a member for more than a few months, so this is all very new to me, and I'm looking forward to what I can learn. I have not written poetry all my life. I think I wrote my first one when I was 5, and the next one when I was 55. I'm going at a little better speed right now. Thank you for coming to help us out.
Sounds like some rich simmering in those years. Yes, I saw a hand. Kristen?
Oh, hey guys.
Hey.
So my name is Kristen Kerrigan. I actually went to Germanna Community College. I'm not even a student there anymore. So I'm really glad that the poetry today found me because I am in, I'm just going to say the Nashville area, Tennessee. But I've actually written a lot of poetry recently. So I'm really just happy to be a part of this group. You know what I mean? So as far as like COVID goes, was that too long? Man, sorry.
No.
Oh, okay, cool. So I was just in Arizona and I wrote a lot of poetry when I was out there, and it really inspired me to just be there and just the air and everything was just so clean and beautiful, you know? Like I watched the sunset across the Fountain Hills in Arizona.
That's great. Thank you for being here. Would anyone like to go next after Kristen?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
So I'm Karen Stewart. I'm actually in the center of North Carolina, and I just joined the Poetry Society of Virginia a few months ago. And I'm just excited to be among poets anywhere talking about anything. So, and I'm jazzed up about this. I love poetry, and I'm excited to hear what everybody wants to share this evening.
So am I.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it on the informal side, which is why I'm also trying to get a feel for what you are bringing with you and where you are, if I can find out a little bit so that we can form some kind of connection. I know Zoom is, I don't know, have you had your fill of Zoom for all this time? I have. I feel like I have. But it's a way to make a connection. Anybody else want to say anything before we? Yeah, Jane?
Yeah, I just officially joined a couple of days ago. I was following on Facebook, and I have been writing a lot of poetry for the last 6 months or so. But as far as the topic of the workshop, what I've been thinking about is how I can write about the fact that when I first learned about COVID is when I was in China, because when it began, when I was there and kind of stuck there in South China, and how amazing it was because everybody immediately wore masks, and we got temperature taken everywhere we went. And it was just such a even before people were asked to wear masks, they were doing it. And it was such a different atmosphere. And I was so anxious to get home, was able to find, since my flight was canceled, I found my way home through South Korea, and was so, when I got back to the United States, I had no idea what it would be like here and how the reaction would be, and people would not be caring for each other in the same way that people were in China. And also the shock of seeing the infrastructure as I was driving from New York City down back here, and seeing how basically how backwards we were after a couple of weeks in China. So I've been trying to figure out how to write a poem about that, but I can't really figure out how to present something like that.
Well, that sounds like a real gift also, in a way, to have such a rich perspective, also in the physical sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of poems that's going to come out of that. Would someone like to introduce themselves after Jane?
I'll go.
I can go.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'll go after Barbara.
Oh, who is that? I think
The,
Barbara.
the other lady can go if she wants to. I didn't mean to jump in there, but
No,
I'm
you're
Barbara.
fine. I can go after you.
Okay, Barbara, then Erika.
I'm Barbara Blankenbaker, and it's just a joy to be here today. Between working full-time and taking care of my 87-year-old young father, writing poetry is something that gives me a lot of joy, and I'm just grateful that I can sit in on this. I don't belong to any groups or anything, but just being here today is refreshing for me, and I'm hoping that I can read some of my work as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here for us too.
I don't know if they give you a chance to share some of the poems and materials we're using here. I know he said he would do that shortly and share it in the chat, but Erika, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Erika, and I'm a new member of the Poetry Society of Virginia. I've been writing a long time, even throughout college, and I was just able to publish my first kind of book of poetry, so that's been really exciting. When I heard the mention of the pandemic, I was in college. I spent my final years in college in the pandemic, so I'm used to the adaptability of situations, of everything constantly changing. And so in that time period, I just realized and reflected that I needed to be more graceful to myself. And that included, making time for poetry, making time for writing and things that I really enjoy. So I'm excited to be here with you all, and I look forward to hearing you all's writing.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I hope that for all of you, this short workshop is a brief interlude in what otherwise would be, maybe us rushing around and doing a lot of things. So next poet. Would someone like to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm in Australia. I thought it actually was a gig, not a workshop, but I'll hang around for the workshop because I'm trying to write a villanelle at the moment for a friend whose mother had passed away, but I want to do it as a love story. So it wasn't COVID, but I've written a COVID poem before and was published, just recently published too. That was written last year. And I'm in Australia, by the way.
Oh, congratulations for the publication that you mentioned. What's the time difference?
It's 18 minutes to 9 here, AM, the next day, the following day. We're the 29th, I think you're the 28th.
Yes. Okay, well, welcome.
I'm from the future.
Yes, you are. Nice. All right. We'll try to catch up with you. Next poet. Anybody?
Hey, I can introduce myself if you like.
Yeah.
I'm Andrea Reed. I'm in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I love these poetry workshops. I've been able to attend two in the past when they were in person. Somehow I missed the one last year. So, and Zoom has been a real blessing to stay connected for me and to be able to even attend other meetings, organizations that are further away. And I write poetry mainly about, I guess, my life experiences and my childhood in Tidewater, Virginia. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for joining us. And next poet.
Hello.
Hello, William.
Hi. Yes, I'm William. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So great. It's great to see you. It's actually my first time I'm chatting with the Poets Society of Virginia.
Where are you situated?
My room.
No, where are you in Virginia?
Oh, Virginia, in Manassas, Virginia.
Manassas.
Yes.
That's not too far away.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
How did you learn about this?
Huh?
How did you learn about the workshop?
I used there's this guy who holds poetry readings at Old Town Manassas, and his name is John Dalton, and I think her name is Alice. You probably may know them. I've been dabbling on the internet to see some local poetry clubs I can check out, and hopefully it's a great opportunity to to connect and
Yeah, yeah, right. Absolutely. I think I've seen so much like hunger for connection, and poetry is one of the ways in which people are using a lot of that kind of expression in ways that I think I have not seen as much of before. And maybe it's an effect of the times we're living through, but nevertheless, yeah,
oh, definitely.
definitely.
Yes, I've been writing poetry since back in college, and 4 years ago, I just got back into it and started, writing stuff of my own.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you. Who else hasn't gone? Well, if you're shy, that no pressure either. If you would rather wait till later to interact a little bit more, that's absolutely fine. I'm also very shy. When I was younger, I was terrified of answering the telephone. So I'm really very
Me
much
too.
very much an
Me too.
introvert at heart. So it's weird that, I have to stand up in front of a classroom nearly every day and kind of channel that energy outward. And I know that you all can relate to this because we're all poets, right? There's a little bit of that in everybody. So, okay, no more pressure on the rest of you unless you really want to, but I am going to share my screen. Can you let me know if my volume is okay? Good. All right. Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to fiddle around with these controls a little bit so I can still see your lovely faces and see if there are any chat messages that come in at any point. You'd think I would be a pro at this, but I feel like I'm still very clumsy with all of these things. So in any case, the title that I chose for this short informal workshop is Our Hearts as Witness, a short workshop on poetry as a way of being present in the world. And again, it's fueled by the kinds of times we are living in, and also the feeling that I think we hear a lot of people ask, and other poets have asked, what can we do when it's so terrible? Why should we sing about the dark times? That's Bertolt Brecht, right? And I like to set a little do a little tone setting at the beginning of every workshop. So are you able to see the screen of the slide okay?
The slide is veering off the left edge of the page.
Yeah. Okay, now can you see that better?
Better, thank you.
Okay, yeah, like I said, I'm clumsy with these things. Would someone like to read this paragraph from an essay of Camila Aisha Moon, the late poet, who has this essay in Superstition Review from a while ago called Beyond Looking, Revealing What's Hidden in Plain Sight. Sorry, there's a word missing from that. I will fix that if any of you would like to have a copy of the PowerPoint after the presentation. Would someone like to read that first paragraph?
I'll read it.
Okay, thank you, Patricia.
Bearing witness in poetry is about intention, empathy, and clarity. The ability to zoom in and out of an emotion or event with a camera's precision, yet calibrated to the human pulse. I believe it is our charge and bond as poets and as human beings to acknowledge and bolster each other as thoroughly as possible. To bear is to be able to carry, to sustain. At our most significant life events, we require a signature, some sort of proof that yes, these people love each other and promise to do so for a lifetime.
Thank you. These are such beautiful words. And for me, perhaps the first impulse of anybody when they hear a word like witness is there's a little bit of recoil also, because it seems such a serious and grave thing that you are being asked to do. But I love how Camila Aisha Moon talks about it in terms of other very clearly defined attributes like intentionality, feeling for or empathy, and a sort of focus, a clear focus, which is not necessarily just, serving as a witness in a kind of testifying sort of way. I think it widens out the definition to other things that are a little bit more in cognizance of our vulnerability as human beings when we are called to do something. We're like, should I step forward or not? Maybe I don't want to do this. I'm gonna look, do the side eye and wait until somebody makes a move, maybe not me. So there's that sort of all kinds of emotions are touched by the word witness. I also like the way she talks about precision, that camera precision, that lens, which is very focused, and yet she talks about calibration by the human pulse. This is a wonderful reformulation of the idea of a seeing device, and it's less mechanical because it is yoked to something that can be fast, can be slow, it can be erratic, but it is so much a part of what tells us we are still alive, right? So the human pulse. Is there anything else that you would like to pick out that strikes you as something that you resonate with about this definition of bearing witness? Anybody just jump in. And I'm also going to pull out the chat to make sure that I'm catching anything that might come in. Yes, William. Your mic, unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just like the symbolism in
Mhm.
poetry. I like the camera position.
Mhm.
Like I can imagine you taking a camera and
Mhm.
you just put it to your eye and just looking at it, and you can control in and out, like control and zooming in and out of a picture and find the perfect spot to take a picture of it. I like that.
Me too. And what she points out about the meanings of to bear, to carry as well as to sustain. So there is both a heaviness to the carrying, and there's also a kind of sustaining sense of, some kind of stability in the bearing, in the carrying. You take the load, but at the same time, you bring it forward. So I also like very much how she ends this paragraph with the idea of loving and promising. So witnessing is not just testifying, it is a signification of how we care enough to make our voice heard or to step forward for another. So love, that's love, right? Okay, so I'd like to continue. Here is another paragraph from the same essay. I apologize. I'm really still very clumsy with these things. So here's Camila again. This is not easy work. In fact, my fellow writing friends and writers for centuries have remarked how foolish we are. What many people spend their entire lives avoiding because of its challenging nature, we willingly sign up for. So here are ways in which we do these things, this work of witnessing. We stare at voids and imagine what could be. We run back into the hard places and record what it means to endure and escape or succumb. We document the transformations and the failures. We plumb the depths as often as we seek transcendence. We agree to be small in the enormity of the sublime and risk being consumed by it in order to share whatever the results are, a triumph, a close call, lessons of survival. We call moments of grace, recognize and banish shame, restore dignity. We sign up to be mirrors of treachery and glory, reflecting everything underneath, above, between, and within every surface we encounter, literally and figuratively. That really opens it up to a lot of different strategies for how do we do this thing we call witnessing. So there you have a list of different things, and we realize we've all done that in some way, even when we fail. So she says, we plumb depths as often as we seek transcendence. So I really love that there is allowance for failure, for error, for risk, as well as for success. I'm probably not using the right word for that, but a triumph, she does say, a triumph, a close call, lessons of survival. Any echo or observation? Does anyone want to add anything to that before we go forward? Okay, here's another paragraph from that. I apologize. I kind of got excited picking out these paragraphs, which I thought to me were like the shiniest nuggets that really reflected what I wanted to do when I called or curated this small selection of poems. I think David has sent you the Word document. So if you would download that now, maybe on your desktop, and keep it open as we move forward through a couple more slides. So she also talks about the willingness to get lost and the faith to handle what is discovered. And she says the result is so essential not only to bearing witness, but what do you do after you bear witness? Is that the end point, to just bear witness? Something must happen after that. And she calls it the creation of something new. And when something is familiar or feels familiar, that we've seen it already, maybe we take it for granted. So she talks about this as something hiding in plain sight, known but not understood. And a witness interprets and values what he or she or they have seen far beyond simply looking. And again, that reminds me of what we do as poets. We, at the very core of what we do, we try to pay attention to the world, to the littlest things that maybe don't seem to compute in the large scheme of things, but that we believe are important. So here's that Bertolt Brecht quote that I was talking about earlier, which people quote a lot these days because there's so much suffering, there's so much sorrow. People have lost so many things and so many people. And also the world is burning, or the world is flooding. We are experiencing all of the different things that come from climate precarity. So the question then is as important then in 1938 when he wrote these words as it is today. In the dark times will there also be singing? Yes, there will also be singing about the dark times. And then I have this quote from Gloria Anzaldúa. I won't read out the whole thing. And like I said, whoever wants this, just let me know and I will share it through David after the workshop or after today. So she talks about building bridges as you go, no guarantees. You have to kind of step out into what looks like the void, but build that bridge as you go. And the struggle is inside, but the inside and the outside kind of balance out each other. Awareness of our situation must come before inner change, which in turn comes before changes in society can happen. So in other words, you have to imagine the condition first before you can see how to make it happen. So the imagination is very important in the work of bearing witness. It's not just looking or thinking you're looking. All right, so just checking to see if there are any chat things. So let's take a moment to do like maybe a 8 to 10 minute writing prompt right now. And you can write on a little notepad, or you can write on a blank page of your Word document on your computer. But let's think about this set of prompts, this set of lines that are all related to each other. So we've all lost something or someone. I lost a friend very early on to COVID back in April of the first spring that we experienced this. I'm kind of witnessing from a great distance because my 87-year-old mother is far away in the Philippines and I can't be there. But through pictures and through social media that my cousin provides for me, I can also see her deteriorating. And I have all kinds of feelings about that. I'm not there, the guilt, the sort of sadness, anxiety about what's coming. So what is the space that something or someone leaves behind? And then just answer these questions in whatever way you can. Just dash off lines or phrases. Why or how did it leave? What sound did it make when it left this space? What shape does it have? Does it change? How large or small is it? How do you know where to find it? Where is it right now? And in your free write, try to fill this space that you're thinking of, that you're holding in your mind. Fill this space that they left with as many things that evoke or recall them in a way that you think they would like to be remembered. So it's 6:01 right now. I'm going to check with everyone. If people would like to share, I would love that. But again, purely voluntary. So around close to the 6:10 mark, let's see what we have arrived at. Just think of space, an empty space. Is it truly empty? What is still there, if there is anything there? Or what would you fill that space with? And if you're the type that likes to work with music, you can put on your earphones or turn on a little thing if you have iTunes. If you want to listen to that while you're working, you can do that. But I'll just hold this space for you too. I'm just going to grab some paper. Let's do about 2 minutes more. Just saying that so you have the heads up. And you can always continue after this workshop. All right, let's start to come back. I just want to hear from you. How did this prompt work for you? And you can either just go ahead and speak, or you can type your response in the chat so we can maximize our presence here. If anyone is moved to read whatever part of what they wrote and share that, you're welcome to do that.
I would like to read what I wrote if it's okay.
Sure, of course, Barbara.
Oh, okay, thanks. Endless, limitless space. Love holds the space now. The sound when you left, a rattle and breath. Breath gone, a last breath. Shape and size and beauty of my mother. Change is the only constant life has. We all live between yesterday and tomorrow, and all we have is today, a precious day. A love so large, so all-encompassing. I smile for you, and still you're with me. I know when you are. Life after life is where you are. You are with me always. A four-leaf clover, a penny in front of me, a feather standing straight up in the grass. I honor you, I love you, I miss you, but all I have to do is talk to you, and you are there.
Thank you, Barbara. So Wyman says in the chat, he says he likes the metaphor of the hole, the empty space, but you've filled it so nicely with all of those wonderful memories of mother. And I like that there are sounds there too. You said there was a rattle sound early on. Thank you. That had a lot of depth and feeling. And I like that you also seem to go out into outer space in a way, or I was seeing that somehow. Thank you. Would someone like to share either their thoughts or their actual words as they did this exercise?
I found the beginning and the end of the prompt to be most effective for me. And I think this is a prompt that I could spend some time with and work with a couple different ways. If people, if there's time, I'd be willing to read the short piece I wrote, but if other people, I'd be happy to give that time to them.
Right. Well, we can read some. Would you like to share?
Sure.
Okay.
He's afraid that we'll forget him. He's afraid to leave. He's afraid to be alone. He's afraid to stay in the space we share. He left a long time ago. He left as soon as he arrived, but He pretended depressants for a little while. God, it was exhausting to try to be present. He pushed us out so he could marinate in the emptiness. Now he poltergeists and pushes things over, bellowing on the other side of consciousness. He lives on my daughter's mantelpiece and knocks his pipe into the tree. He hovers over my refrigerator and knocks down the empty jars of spices. He is trying to get us to hear him, to listen to everything he never said before it was too late. A handful of hours before he died, he said, I should make a will, eh? Too late. He said, that car holds everything I love, as we drove away. Too late. Now the jars on the fridge explode outward, bouncing and clattering. My heart tries to burst open with the shock.
Oh, that's so powerful. Thank you, Patricia. I love the poltergeist image and how vividly it captures the strength of, I guess, unrequited desire. There's so much energy in those lines. There's grieving, but there's also, I detect also kind of wonderment that there's still so much stuff that is manifesting. I hope I'm reading this in the right way, but thank you. Those are amazing lines. Would somebody else like to share? Yes, Sue? Go ahead, Sue. Sue, we can't hear you. Do you have your microphone on? Still can't hear you. Sorry, like I told you, I'm so clumsy.
Am I okay now?
Yes, you are okay.
Okay, sorry. My cursor got lost. I just wanted to say a few things that came to mind. I don't have anything finished as yet, but I hope I will.
Of course.
He slipped away silently. The shape he is the shape I need for him to be. His voice can still be heard. That was especially when I was driving and he would say, you're going 60. I can still hear that. And then the thing I like to remember about him is his smile when a child is with him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So those also, I'm amazed by how naturally, I think a lot of people, when I use this prompt, it feels very natural to kind of reach into what appears to be an empty space and find something meaningful. And that going outside of oneself, I think, is the first important gesture that we make as poets in poetry, whatever theme it is we're writing about. Is there anyone else that would like to share what they wrote or maybe reflect on what the process was like thinking about these prompts?
Actually, I like to share something. It's not done, but I have a few points from your questions.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a hardworking man. My father had a great heart, but now my family and my world has fallen apart. Silent, like I enter a room I shouldn't be in. The sound of sadness and anger all mixed in. I wish I could speak my mind towards it, but I'm afraid of anger it further. of making it pretty much devastating for them. Maybe until we get, maybe we can get together as soon we all calm, we stay calm, and soon we can be, and soon we become a family again.
Mhm.
That's as much as I got. So pretty much, you know, about like several years ago, my family, my parents got separated, you know, and all of a sudden it was pretty much, devastating and pretty much shocking to me because I've been idolizing my father throughout my years, and somehow I wouldn't not trying to forget what that news, forget the news, but somehow it carries it along with me.
Mhm. Thank you. And Patricia put a comment in the chat, which I also agree with. Thank you so much. So I hope you continue writing along the lines that are laid down, the tracks that are laid down by this prompt. I hope the few examples that we heard are really characteristic of how much all of you, I'm hoping, were able to get out of this small set of prompts. So you have your Word document where I have some readings. So I'd like to look at some of the poems and I'd like to think about those poems. We probably won't have enough time to go through all of them, but I have sort of written down what I think some of these poems show by way of a kind of approach to writing about or witnessing to the world with both heart and empathy, and trying to feel like we are doing it respectfully and truthfully, and also acknowledging, everything that comes with the territory. The vulnerability of taking this position of witness is not really a speaking for, we also have to be really mindful of things like, do we own the right to tell someone else's story? But if it is an important story, how can we still talk about it? So I think we can do these things if we keep in mind the idea that acknowledging spaces and how people occupy them, how humans occupy them. Before we enter a space, just like when we enter the home of someone, we don't just barge in. We have to knock. We have to maybe tell people ahead of time, I would like to, sit with you for coffee or whatever. But the asking for permission, the finding what the limits or boundaries are, we also can do that in poetry. So the first poem in your packet, it's on page 3, is a small poem by Ross Gay, A Small Needful Fact. And I'm just going to read so we can kind of not rush, but make sure we can hit all the points that I'd like to hit. So this is from his book, Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude. You all see it in your packet? Page 3, the Word document that David sent. It's in the chat. David, would you like to put it again in the chat right now? So maybe people were late in seeing it. Maybe they can see it now. I can also do this. I can look at my copy. Here we go. On my screen, a small needful fact is that Eric Garner worked for some time for the Parks and Rec Horticultural Department, which means perhaps that with his very large hands, perhaps in all likelihood, he put gently into the earth some plants which, most likely, some of them, in all likelihood, continue to grow, continue to do what such plants do, like house and feed small and necessary creatures, like being pleasant to touch and smell, like converting sunlight into food, like making it easier for us to breathe. So you all know the reference to the story of how Eric Garner died at the hands of police, and I believe it was in 2014. He was supposedly arrested for selling unlicensed cigarettes, and he said, "I couldn't breathe," and then he passed out, and they took him to the hospital, and he was gone. So a small needful fact. So is there anything about this poem that you find striking in the manner of its composition?
I love the gentleness with which he handles the grief.
Mm-hmm. And how do you get the gentle tone, Patricia? Where do you find it in the poem?
The planting, the putting gently into the earth,
Yes.
the growth, the smallness.
Mm-hmm.
That is all, there's a great deal of delicacy that
Yes.
seems to emphasize that the pain is so much bigger than we can bear.
Yes. And repetition also, says Laura.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And also the title talks about fact, a small, needful fact. So apparently the poem is interested in introducing a fact about Eric Garner. And when we hear the word fact, we are thinking of, some sort of indubitable piece of information, something that probably is very difficult to dislodge from, whatever logic it carries. A fact is a fact. It's not fake news, right? So then you also have the way the poem is constructed as one long poetic sentence from start to finish. Everything is just one sentence, one poetic sentence. And then it goes back to the last line, which is about breathing. And maybe you needed to hold your breath a little bit when you read this, even if it was short. But what I'm very struck about also in this poem is the pauses, the ways in which there seems to be a kind of doubt or a kind of, I'm not really sure. The speaker is saying, well, I'm not really entirely sure about what I'm saying, but maybe you can. So what is that interspersion of these moments of seeming doubt or seeming conjecture? What is their place in a poem like this, which is supposed to be about fact? So Patricia has, the fact is entwined with imagining beyond the fact. Right. So also, if somebody took away all of the, not parentheticals, but the pauses that are signaling doubt or signaling, well, maybe I don't have all the facts, but this is what I think, a sort of hypothesizing. If you took away all of that, it would be a very skinny fragment that's left, and it would sound more sure of itself, right? Eric Garner worked for some time at the Parks and Recreation Department. Boom. He had large hands, and plants convert, they give us oxygen, and that's it. But the widening of those pauses within the poem gives you a speaker who kind of is a little bit of taking a step back. I don't know everything about Eric Garner, and we can't claim that. We can't claim to know everything about this man who died. But if he did this, and if he did that in his capacity as somebody who worked as a gardener, maybe you can think about certain things. So it introduces the possibility of imagining. So you start with a small thing, and you start from there and build a line. So attending to the small makes you capable of building from a sort of nothing to something. You learn a little more about him, but you're not claiming to know everything about him. You're not an authority on Eric Garner. So it does this thing that Patricia talks about earlier, about portraying him as a gentle tender, shepherd of growing things in the earth, but it also doesn't make assumptions that would make the speaker and the poet, kind of out of place. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add to this?
I would just like to say that it's ironic too, in a way, that a person who said they couldn't breathe left a legacy of plants and wonderful bushes for us all to be able to oxygenate us, and also to have a place for the animals and things to live.
Right, exactly. And makes us, like, making it easier for us to breathe, perhaps, in all likelihood. Yeah. So when we build lines in our poems, we push into a certain kind of, you've heard the phrase, write what you know, right? But I think that most of the time when we are writing, we are actually writing from a great unknowing, a great sense of unknowing, perhaps into further unknowing. And that's okay. We don't need to know everything. We also can ask questions. So it's okay to write towards what we don't know yet. And maybe the discovery of something later on in this process is what will give us insight, maybe some joy at having discovered that insight. It will maybe lead us to a connection that we didn't see before. But when we build our lines in our poems, what we call into the poems in the manner of an accumulation of lines and material, we usually kind of go groping in the dark for a little while until we feel like we can see the shape that's emerging. At least that's how it seems like that to me when I'm writing. I love writing with lack of research, yes. And that helps you, that's very helpful. But at the same time, you have to piece it together. So here's another poem, and we can quickly look at it. Jane Hirschfield's poem, which is a fairly recent poem. Today, when I could do nothing. Today, when I could do nothing, I saved an ant. It must have come in with a morning paper, still being delivered to those who sheltered in place. A morning paper is still an essential service. I am not an essential service. I have coffee and books, time, a garden, silence enough to fill cisterns. It must have first walked the morning paper as if loosened ink taking the shape of an ant. Then across the laptop computer, warm, then onto the back of a cushion. Small black ant alone, crossing a navy cushion, moving steadily because that is what it could do. Set outside in the sun, it could not have found again its nest. What then did I save? It did not move as if it was frightened, even while walking my hand, which moved it through swiftness and air. Ant, alone, without companions, whose ant heart I could not fathom. How is your life? I wanted to ask. I lifted it, took it outside. This first day when I could do nothing, contribute nothing beyond staying distant from my own kind, I did this. So that's Jane Hirschfield's poem, which is beautiful. It's got all her hallmark characteristics also, thank you, yes. But I'm really quite taken with the actual visibility of the way that line develops. First, the speaker continues. Sorry? Andrew, were you saying something? Anyway, okay, so the line develops from nothing to something. And I love all the ways in which they meld and melt one into the other. The ant, the paper, the essential service, the feeling like one is not essential. So on this day, the speaker is feeling like she has nothing to contribute to the world. And then she sees an ant and takes it outside. It's a very simple scenario. I also love the way she describes the ant here as if separating from a line in the newspaper, ink coming alive, and for nice haiku on the verse, okay? Yes. So, and then it finds its way to a more affirming statement in the last stanza. Anyway, the connection of this line all the way from the beginning or where it starts and all the way until the end where it concludes, you can see that train of thought, and you can also see the visible building of the lines. And it's as if the speaker / poet is working out the arrival at that meaning that finally she can say, yeah, I'm useful. I can contribute to the world. Is there any other observation that people would like to offer? And I'll talk about just one more poem so we can see if there are any questions or if people would like to talk about other ideas that are occurring to them as we look at these things. Okay. So on the screen where I had it earlier, so I will also give this to you. These are some, strategies for writing about what is difficult, writing and witnessing to a world that is full of complexity, full of very difficult kinds of decisions that sometimes we don't even feel we can make. Some of these things that we are presented with are painful. They are pictures of suffering. They're pictures of tribulation, injustice, and we would like to do something about these things, but we feel like, where do we start? So here are some ways to do that. So attending to the small, so just like those two first poems, building a line from nothing to something, attending to the histories behind language. And I have a poem in your packet there which I wanted to use for talking about that idea, the poem of Solmaz Sharif titled Visa. And perhaps you can go over that again at your leisure, more in depth in the quiet of your own reading. But there are other ways also to continue the list that I've assembled here of some ways to address how to write from the place of witness with heart, as well as with all of our vulnerability, and not fear that what we have is not enough. Okay, so imagine and affirm a different energy. I say, decenter the question, recenter a different set of reactions or responses, and then going on, imagine and acknowledge the pain of what was lost, which I think we were trying to do with that free write. And then at the end, offering a kind of prayer, which is like a description of the place of the things that we don't know in all our, I guess, human frailty and all of the unknowing that we carry with us. We sit with that and we reflect on the ways in which we might use that vulnerability as a source of connection to other people, so that we can be inspired to action, so that we can be inspired to form community or to write more poems about certain things we might not have wanted to touch before. And maybe that will help to give us strength. But for the third one, imagine and affirm a different energy. I just wanted to share one more poem to read that poem aloud because it's also a fun poem. It is Threya Almontasser's When White Boys Ask to See My Hair. And this is basically about changing the energy of what is hurled, at the speaker. So in doing these things that she does in this poem, she recenters not the dialogue, because to begin with, there was not a dialogue when they said, can I see your hair? Can I touch your hair? All of these sort of offensive things that break the boundaries of that space we find so private and so close to us, and which marks us as uniquely human in our own way. And then other people just want to barge in there, being there. Yes, we all have some version of that. But okay, so I'll read Threya's poem. It's from her new book, her first book. I have it here because I'm teaching it. The Wild Fox of Yemen. Beautiful book from Milkweed. Yes. So, oh, Gray Wolf, sorry. Would white boys ask to see my hair? My hair isn't taking any visitors right now. My hair was used as a banner on the moon. My hair is belly dancing on an auntie's tabletop. My hair is flipping off an ice raider after he barges into her favorite sandwich shop, arresting her neighbors. Look at her hurl her breakfast, concussing an officer with a hexed bacon, egg, and cheese. My hair escaped an arranged marriage to sail the seas near Somalia with a crew of burly pirates. She's busy battling maritime brigands and trying not to get lost. My hair is Medusa's cousin, the strands slithering along your throat. Avert your gaze for your own good. My hair fell off the long light on Mount Everest trying to take a selfie. My hair was captured from the exotic Manu wilderness and caged for a popular circus show. My hair is under siege in Yemen. Her home was recently bombed and her children buried under the rubble. I'm not entirely sure if she'll make it out alive. My hair is ducking underneath a desk, trying to recall the drills, math sheets falling in a white rain. My hair was abducted by aliens. Rumor has it she got sassy with the Supreme Lord and was tossed into a black hole. Others say she got on their good side, so they spun her into a star. That might be her there, winking down at you. My hair was mauled on a Tanzanian safari. I found a few leftover pieces of her floss between a caracol's fangs. My hair joined a deep-rooted Bedouin tribe. She enjoys feeding nomadic camels from her palm, became the sheikh's third wife, and sings ancient poetry into campfires. She is happy. I don't think she's coming back. So definitely feel the change of energy, the decentering of the question, the recentering of a different set of reactions and responses. And I don't want to take up too much time because I know this is an evening where we share other people's words too. I'm just going to go quickly to my last slide when I put up, short list of reminders, which I give myself when I try to approach difficult subjects of both personal and historical and cultural or other trauma, or just things that are very difficult to write about, talk about. So is it your story to tell? Do you have permission? What is your intention behind approaching the subject? What kind of agency is arrived at through your words? Who do they serve? So remember Camila Aisha Moon's phrase in the opening paragraph about clarity, intentionality. So there's that. Have you done careful research? What point of view or perspective would allow you to come close to the subject, while at the same time acknowledging or respecting your and other existing boundaries, perhaps not necessarily just writing persona poems? What are you honoring or potentially dishonoring with your words? And that's the end of my slides and my fumbling with slides. Thank you so much for your patience with me. But okay, are there any questions? That is basically the end of the workshop that I put together for us to consider. As I said, it's rather informal. It's really just about talking about poems that I love, poems that we love, that address or try to approach this subject of writing about and witnessing to some very difficult things in the world right now. Yes, William. I can't hear. Okay, there you go.
I really enjoy your workshop. I really, it's been a long time since I've been writing. I've been writing like, from the heart, but sometimes people usually use in your head, using the head, but somehow it's confusing for people. Should I write from the heart or from the head? Or you should do both. But for me, I do both.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I really enjoy I really enjoyed, your workshop. I really enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't feel I can separate my feelings from my thoughts, from, everything. I've been saying a lot lately. Poetry, including our writing and our speaking it and sharing it like this, reading to each other, is very important because poems have to pass through an actual physical body in order to get articulated. So I try to remember that all the time. So everything in who you are, what you are, where you're standing, where you're grounded or not, wobbly, whatever, all of that goes into the expression of a poem.
Mhm.
Mhm.